What up, everyone? It's your boy Red Hawk. It is 10:58 a.m. in the morning on Monday, August 24, 2026, and I am going to talk a great deal about my stepmother, who pretty much became the biggest nuisance in the family I was born into. Now, for this video, I have my King of Fighters Kyo Kusanagi white t-shirt on, which I bought from redbubble.com, and my pair of Ray-Ban silver frame and brown Chromans lens aviator sunglasses as my talismans for this video. I am wearing these as to ward off any kind of bad juju that may come up while I'm talking about the most dreaded person in my family. Where can I even start? I don't even remember my stepmother's exact birth date, but I know that she was born in 1959, 6 years older than my biological father, and a year older than my biological mother. Because of the huge conflict that stirred up between me and my stepmother, I never bothered asking where she went to kindergarten, preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. All I can remember was that she was in a nursing program in the Philippines for some time before dropping out, and she later ended up working as a data entry a typist at Cavlico Simi Valley in Ventura County, California, many years ago. As it turned out too, she has lived in Northern California before settling down here in SoCal. From all the stories that my stepmother told me as I was growing up, well, when I was in 8th grade through senior year of high school, let's just say that her upbringing was never pleasant. In the provinces, I forgot exactly where, she grew up with somewhere between 5 to 6 other siblings and only had salt water and rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Meat and veggies were a luxury to them, and every time they complained about not having meat, veggies, and certain snacks, they would get beaten by their parents. It also didn't help that when my stepmother was in college, she was bullied by certain classmates. There was this instance where she was handed a 2-liter bottle of Coke and was told to drink from it with a baby's pacifier, signifying that she was considered some kind of pansy when it comes to being a woman. When my stepmother met my biological father in 2000, things were going darkly from my biological father's perspective. He speculated that my mother was screwing him over in thousands of dollars by spending his Navy allowance as a petty officer second class E5 left and right, when this wasn't the case. My mother had wanted to invest on property with his money and pretty much have some kind of farm for all of us to grow vegetables and fruits and maximize our profits in pesos back in Laguna. But then again, my biological father was blinded with impure, adulterated hatred towards my mother, and so he started cheating on her with my stepmother, even though there was no sexual stuff involved from what I could speculate on my end. In essence, the sexual stuff was replaced with false type of devotion towards God through malpractice of Catholicism. This is done by anguish-filled praises of Jesus and hate-driven singing of gospel music while they were in church back in San Diego under the tutelage of Mr. Morris Cerullo, an Italian-American pastor situated in Southern California. Need I recap that every time my grandmother hears of the name Morris Cerullo, she would get angry and call him Morris Siraulo, which is Tagalog for Morris Brokenhead, an insult that she would use as she described biological father's shenanigans. with Stepmother. Now, for the evangelical pastor, I would say that this is not to degrade him. This is just to merely state the facts as I witnessed from my own eyes when I was growing up and when I was in my early 20s, serving in the Navy and then getting out of the Navy to go to community college in the early 2010s. So if I draw any ire towards any dealings regarding Mr. Chirulo, then I deeply and humbly apologize for saying what I said. But like I mentioned, this is just to state the facts as I saw with my own eyes and heard with my own ears. Now back to the cruel livelihood that I experienced under my stepmother. It all started really smooth. Right around spring of 2002, or maybe even late fall of 2001, I was being invited by bio dad and stepmom to go to Burbank Empire's shopping strip down by the I-5 interstate freeway. One time, we went to Hometown Buffet and spent like a couple of hours just trying to get to know each other. A few hours after that one day, we even went to Glendale Galleria to eat at the Panda Express. That was also where we stopped by a local GameStop over there in Glendale for my stepmother to buy me a $10 copy of Star Wars X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, a really old video game for the computer back then. I should have seen the signs of my biological father acting up really angry. One instance where I saw him unleash his full wrath was when he got angry at me for being in danger of failing maybe a couple of my classes back in David Starr Jordan Middle School, Burbank. Long story short, he took out the home videos that I was watching as I was doing my exercises on the little Abdoer physical fitness seat that we bought, and pretty much confiscated that tape. In that home videotape, I was looking at myself when I was 3 or 4 years old and overweight for a kid's standard. And for my biological father to take away that tape was just disgusting and disappointing, to say the worst. I could also recall one time when I wouldn't say depressed, but had a great deal of funk from bio dad and bio mom's divorce. I was just lying down on a sidewalk close to where I live in 442 North Parish Place, down by Parish Place and Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank. Bio dad and stepmom drove by the house one time, and I was just lying down there. They were offering some kind of come here gesture just so I could hang out with them, but I just looked at them. I don't recall if I even shook my head, but I was glaring at them angrily for some odd reason that I couldn't even fathom. And then they drove away. Around that time too, I had also gotten to the backyard of the house and just lied down on the long step by the back door of the house for what seemed to be an hour to 2 hours, just to contemplate on what the hell had happened to the family I was born into. Initially, my time with bio dad and stepmom was laden with a good deal of good times. This was around before I started 8th grade. Stepmom would marvel at how I was playing Super Nintendo games on our family computer, a Windows XP. She would laugh at the many funny sequences as I played games like Ren and Stimpy, Vidiots, and The Tick on Super Nintendo. Even pointing out to some of the funny details in those video games. For example, there was a stage in Ren and Stimpy Vidiots where Ren would run through a huge mouth with giant teeth for the video game adaptation of the episode The Boy Who Cried Wolf. In the tick, there was this flicking motion that the main muscular superhero would use to dispatch his enemies. And so my stepmother would get a good kick laughing at watching me do those sequences in those games. In middle school and in high school, I had become a huge fan of Star Wars, and I somewhat regard myself as akin to Luke Skywalker because I had essentially lost my biological father to evil spirits, kind of like when Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side. The problem was, whenever I talked to bio dad and stepmom about Star Wars, they would mock my interest towards the franchise overall. It also didn't help that whenever I watched Top Gun on DVD on loop, my stepmom would just mock me for trying to go into a profession that not a lot of people get in, essentially becoming a Navy fighter pilot, which I used so I could get myself distracted from all the terrors and troubles that I encountered while living in our little apartment at 21909 Satakoy Street by Satakoy Street and Topanga Canyon in Canoga Park, California. I actually didn't see my stepmother's true colors, which is terribly horrifying, until the end of 8th grade when I graduated from Columbus Middle School, Canoga Park. This was around June 2003, early June 2003, when we were taking photographs as remembrance, because I'll be moving away from my classmates back then. I was so excited and so happy that I'm graduating from Columbus and going to Reseda afterwards. And when my stepmother heard me saying, "Oh, come on guys, let's go. Well, I was talking to my friends Damus Go and Mark Castro, two Filipino guys that I went to middle school with. Stepmom caught wind of my excitement and rushed to basically chastise me and say, "I am not your playmate. Hindi ako kalaro mo." Which is like the most annoying, condescending piece of Tagalog language that I have ever heard of. The troubles didn't stop there. In December 2003, I was punished for doing one of the most unruly things that I ever did in my entire life. And I'm sorry that I'm not gonna bring about the vivid details of that one, but I gotta tell you, that one was motivated by just being angry at bio dad divorcing bio mom back in 2001, ending in a rather unfriendly, degrading argument that they ever had. And then 3 years on, I did one of the most unthinkable things that I could ever do. And for that, I got punished US Marine Corps boot camp style. And I was screamed at. I was called so many ugly names. And the bad thesis like icing on a rather trashy cake was that stepmother took a huge 2-liter bottle of orange soda, shook it intensely, opened the bottle, and then splattered orange soda all over my face because she thought I was an insolent child. When deep down I was just hurt from the divorce that happened in 2001 between bio dad and bio mom. Folks, let me comment on that one. If that wasn't absolute horrifying child abuse, then I don't know what is. Oh, the troubles didn't stop there. Throughout my freshman year in Reseda High School, I was mocked by my stepmother for taking interest in Reseda High School's Navy JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps organization, and just trying to live out some kind of military-esque life when I was in high school. She mocked my time in JROTC, which was like for a year, my entire freshman year. Every time she ironed my white service dress uniform shirt and my black service dress uniform pants, she would glare at me and say, "This is for you. Maybe your organization commanding officer will straighten you up and make you less of a fool." Around that time too, she even revealed why she wouldn't listen to conventional music on the radio or even various cassettes and CDs. This was because one time when she was younger, every time she heard U2, The Clash, Pat Benatar, Madonna, and whole other bands and artists on the radio, she claimed that her head would start to ache, and that whenever she hummed gospel tunes, all that love for Jesus and all, she would get back to be feeling all right again. I just gotta say, there's this huge cognitive dissonance with whatever she was saying, because she was a really hypocritical monster when it comes to praising Jesus and showing love for the Divine One. Around the time when I was in high school, I can remember maybe one or two instances where she slapped me out of nowhere and just called me insolent little bastard and all other colorful, degrading names. I could recall an instance where we had our Casio keyboard lined up in our living room and Bio Dad was practicing some of his piano skills. I complained to both of them that Bio Dad used to be cool, but now that he's more into gospel music, he's starting to become a real pain in the butt for everybody, including me. In order to shut me up, basically, Stepmom chimed in a condescending way and said, No, your dad is not cool anymore. In fact, he leveled up because he loves Jesus and plays gospel on his keyboard." What a load of hogwash, if you ask me. Folks, I don't need to tell you, based on that every single time that we sang gospel music during our attendance at Word International Ministry in Van Nuys, California, right along Silmar Avenue, that little white church where Mr. Norman Abadia presided and ministered everybody, it wasn't very sincere at all. I would hear Stepmom whisper in a very angry tone, "Worship you, Jesus," which annoyed the living bejesus out of me. Around that time too, 8th grade to freshman year, I was really into Simpsons and this military legal TV show called JAG, starring David James Elliott, Catherine Bell, and Patrick LaBiorteau. I really love the comedy in The Simpsons and all the shenanigans that the family gets into. And for JAG, I really love how the main character, Captain Harmon Rabb, goes from from flying as an F-14 pilot and then dealing with sailor and marine legal cases after the piloting segment. And so every time I would watch JAG, I would think to myself, if I couldn't become Maverick, then I would want to become like Harmon, DJE's character. But the problem was, my stepmother had a really disgusting fixation towards me, quote unquote, obsessing over military TV shows like JAG. And so this pretty much drained me and made me emotionally distraught because of how stepmother would go on about mocking me for my passion towards comedy cartoons and military TV shows. And so to take my mind off of stepmother's strange, angry fixation towards my love for JAG, I ended up obsessing over this Korean American girl named Junie. Long story short, Junie felt creeped out about how I acted around her. And so she basically told me to stay away from me, when all I ever wanted to do was call out for help because I was being abused at home. That being said, because of the way that I acted, a lot of my Korean friends in Reseda High School fled from my site and basically labeled me a freak. Speaking of Koreans too, ironically, stepmom had a good Korean friend who she would bump into at Green Market down at the Sherman Way, Van Nuys. And I got to chat with this Korean lady, and she seemed way nicer than my stepmother. I'm gonna get to the part where I consider maybe more than a dozen other ladies that were better mother figures than stepmother ever was. But the irony is that whenever stepmother would bring out Junie in our discussions during 10th grade, 2004 to 2005, she would refer to the girl as si Koreana. Yes, stepmother would never refer to Junie in her proper name, but just referring to her as the Korean girl. This was around the time too when stepmother tried to get me involved with a Filipina named Allison, which I covered in one of my previous lengthy videos. Just to piggyback on my JROTC stint, stepmother wanted me to take dance choreography or ballet because she felt that JROTC was causing some kind of regimented style brain rot, making me look like some kind of a caricature of a soldier from TV shows like MASH or Combat or Soldier, which is basically not true. I had really wanted to advance in JROTC and hopefully be part of the rifle drill teams or color guard or the air rifle shooting team. But then again, those extracurricular activities didn't formulate on my end. And so I left JROTC after a year, hugely disappointed for not continuing because of my stepmother's unwanted, nonsensical tirades on me getting involved in the program. It didn't help too that by the end of freshman year in 2004, June 2004, stepmother openly declared that she and Bio Dad were going to adopt kids and leave me out in the open to freeze to mortality. I gotta tell you, that was disgusting. She shouldn't have done that. Just nonchalantly saying that she was gonna adopt 3 kids who happened to be her nephews and nieces and disown me because I wanted to go to the Naval Academy to become a naval officer, or maybe even other military academies, just so I can gain a regular commission in the American military. That made me feel more distraught than ever. This happened too after a little party that was organized by Mr. Abadia in a house of one of our fellow churchgoers in Van Nuys. And I just gotta say, I had to get myself emotionally numb just so I can dump out the BS that Biodad and Stepmom were spouting when we were driving back home to Canoga Park in our white Toyota Camry. I even tried to make a claim that, hey, if I couldn't become a military officer, then I would like to become either A, a mathematician, or B, a lawyer. But then again, Biodad and Stepmom shot down those prospects in front of my face. Things didn't rear its ugly head until September 2007. This was maybe 2 to 3 weeks before I reported to Naval Station Great Lakes, Illinois for Recruit Training Command, Navy Boot Camp, RTC Great Lakes. In our new home in Coolidge, Arizona, Uh, my stepmother, two of our lady friends, and I sat in a circle in one of the bedrooms. I think it was her own bedroom. We were discussing about how to bring this girl Allison to America because her grandmother and her mother wanted to be with her. They were the two other ladies besides my stepmother that were in the room. Bio dad sat in a corner on a chair and just listened to the little conference unfold. Long story short, we got into a heated argument, and I started screaming and pointing out stepmother's abuse and just saying, basically, do not want to marry a Filipina because of this ugly shrew's actions. I mean, hey, I'm in America. I can date white, I can date Latina, I can date black, I can date Arab, I can date Japanese, I can date Chinese, Korean, Thai, Vietnamese, Burmese, Cambodian, what have you. So please do not frickin' limit my options because of your little stupid arrangement. Oh boy, the day after, stepmother was fuming. She looked at me with patronizing, smiling eyes and mouth and basically told me that, hey, you're gonna get married to Allison, congratulations. And out of nowhere, I just started crying because I really didn't want to get married to Allison and a fixed marriage scam that was to unfold if I continued. The prospect was that that I was going to get $10,000 out of that fixed marriage, but then again, I didn't think that I was going to get that money because 3/4 to 80% of that money was going to be transferred over to stepmother, and I was going to be essentially left with almost nothing. Hell, $2,000 is not even enough to sustain myself. And so I broke down and cried on the couch in our open living room in Coolidge, Arizona. I turned to Bio Dad and just screamed in front of his face and just said, I joined the Navy just so I could start over. I do not want to get involved in this mess. Whether he understood that, I don't know. But for all I knew, for 2 to 3 weeks up until I departed to Navy boot camp, I just didn't want to talk to both of them because of what unfolded that time in September of 2007. I could remember too that during graduation, one of the only kindest things that ever happened to me when I graduated from Coolidge High School in Arizona was that in ways I thank stepmother for helping me graduate from high school, even though we had a bitter relationship for the most part, and she returned my hug as if she was actually bio mom, standing shoulder to shoulder with bio dad around that time on May 29, 2007. What really made my blood boil was that I really wanted to finish high school at Reseda, but considering that bio dad couldn't pay the monthly rent in our apartment in Canoga Park, we had to move to Coolidge, Arizona for quote unquote better opportunities. But I didn't see much of those better opportunities when we were living in Coolidge. It was more of the same thing that we experienced in Canoga Park. And there were times when I would hear Bio Dad scream at the top of his lungs while he was in his study in one of the corners of the house. He was getting frustrated with the AutoCAD drawings that he was doing for houses. And I would just hear him scream in frustration. I don't know what drove him to do so, but it would be that he had his own frustration with stepmother, with being around stepmother. To put it really bluntly, it seemed that they were close when they were attending the church under Dr. Chirullo in San Diego. But the thing is, that relationship reared its ugly head as 6 years passed by. It wouldn't be until 2 or 3 years after that I would catch wind of Bio Dad getting kicked out of our Coolidge, Arizona house by stepmom because she couldn't afford to feed him. The key word is feed because, in an essence, Bio Dad was like a baby boy to stepmom, and she got tired of taking care of him because of after some arguments that they had about livelihood together. And so 7 years after 2006, 2013, they ended up divorcing, and Bio Dad even had to fork monthly payments towards the van that they bought just so stepmom could bring her nephews and nieces to school and then take them back home each and every day that they attended Coolidge High School. Of course, around that time, I was in the Navy, 2007 to 2011. And then I got out to go to a community college in Los Angeles Valley College, LAVC in Valley Glen near Van Nuys. Back in California, so to speak. And when 2013 came, I was finishing my studies at Citrus College, Glendora, California, because I had wanted to move close to Cal Poly Pomona and go to university over there around San Gabriel Valley, the eastern sector of Los Angeles. But just to dial back to my departure for Navy boot camp, I gotta mention again, I did not talk to Bio Dad and stepmom for 2 to 3 weeks up until I left for boot camp. Well, I mostly talked to her, not him, because I was just so angry at him for everything that he had done to me and my mother. And so while the petty officer first class, that was my recruiter, fetched me, stepmother got into my face before I went out the door and said, "So, you're starting over. I could have taught you more on how to become a man, but you don't want that. And so, maybe this is goodbye." I hugged her, but the thing is, when I told her thank you for everything, I was crying out of sadness and anger at the same time because of everything that she had done, starting from when she greenlit Bio Dad's infidelity towards biological mother back in 2001 time frame. I didn't say anything as I got into my recruiter's car and let the journey begin. The last contacts that I had after I graduated from boot camp at Great Lakes, they weren't very fruitful at all. In fact, they were very toxic. I found myself crying over the phone when I was at Training Support Center Great Lakes, the next door to boot camp, and just telling them why everything happened the way they did. And Bio Dad couldn't give me a straight answer. He felt very guilty about having to let me go. And so he masked that by some kind of a narcissistic, toxic tone. He said, "You're 18 now. You can do whatever you want. You can even date whichever girl you want to." And I just couldn't help but cry my eyes out because this male creature had basically abandoned me and my mother. The one that was supposed to be my guardian, my hero, my model figure for how to become a man, he was gone. He was being manipulated by this evil succubus and banshee combined. And so I was heartbroken during that phone call in late December of 2007. Things wouldn't come into a great falling out until 2008 when I was in Aviation Electrician's Mate AEA school in Jacksonville, Florida. One phone call one time, I was trying to see how stepmother was doing, and she became paranoid, even asking me if I was talking smack about her to mom, that's when I finally uh, put my foot down and screamed at her, saying, if you're going to continue acting like this, then it is best that we go our separate ways. This is goodbye. I don't want to talk to you. Shut the hell up. Folks, I gotta tell you, yes, I am going to absolutely say this once and for all. Because of the way my stepmother acted towards me and how she talked trash about my mom, and of course, calling me ugly and dumb and all other hateful words, I made up my mind that I was never gonna go back to the Philippines and find my wife. Instead, I would just want to go to Japan and find my wife over there because I am sick of terrible Filipinas like my stepmother. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I am not a bigot. It just so happens that I am so into Japanese culture. Call me a weeb, whatever, but this is my genuine interest. And even today, if my stepmom were to reestablish contact with me, she would still mock me about that interest. And so, I would have to do the best thing for me, which is to basically never speak to her ever again. I hope that if you guys and gals ever catch wind and watch this video in its entirety, I can only hope that you can understand people like myself. That not all brown boys are the same. That some of us have different interests and goals in life apart from, I don't know, going to medical school and becoming a nurse and marrying a fellow Filipina. That's not me. All in all, though, I'm just going to have to state however much good things that came out of my time with stepmother. Let's see here. We love going to Vietnamese restaurants and eating pho noodles every now and then. She made the best cantaloupe juice with pulp. And she even loved the living bejesus out of Disney cartoons and game shows like Family Feud, Jeopardy, and Wheel of Fortune. Every single night, as I got off from school and Bio Dad got off from work, we would spend hours just watching game shows. And I suppose that's just one of the bittersweet takeaways that I could ever have with regards to living with my stepmother. Another downside that I have to mention was that whenever I suggest a Star Wars movie, we were gonna rent a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I think it was the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl, from a local Blockbuster down at Roscoe Boulevard and Topanga Avenue. I suggested Star Wars Episode 3 in 2003, and Stepmom pretty much mocked my interest in Star Wars overall, like I mentioned earlier in this video. And so we ended up not renting Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, but went with Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Plus, I also mentioned that we also watched Crocodile Hunter Collision Course. But the thing is, it was never a fun moment for me. There were around the time when we saw Steve Irwin's movie, Bio Dad would turn to stepmom and just joke terribly, horribly about how Steve Irwin talked. The crikey, mate, kind of thing, and just nudge towards her and just give her a really awful kiss, which I felt disgusted about. I gotta mention too, 2006, after a visit to a dentist's office around Silmar, I think, we went to a local Carl's Jr. and we were talking about my future. Bio Dad wanted me to go to Arizona State University after graduating from Coolidge, Arizona, but I refused to do that. Instead, I pretended that I was going to enlist in the Air Force as a jet mechanic, and when I got out of the Air Force, that I would move to either Wisconsin or Michigan and go to university over there, all while looking to become a pilot. I guess that was one of the ways that I had to numb myself after being abused by both of them for so long. Although I had to mention too that things didn't turn out that way, but I experienced something that's like the next best thing, which is joining the Navy, getting stationed in Japan as an F-18 Hornet aviation electrician, doing 2 tours aboard the USS George Washington aircraft carrier, and going home to Los Angeles to go to community college and university in California. I know that's a very lengthy video to do, ladies and gentlemen, but I gotta look towards the future now. Where am I? I'm in LA. What do I touch? My aviator sunglasses and my KOF King of Fighters shirt. What's happening next week? Well, I'm starting classes at Glendale Community College just to fulfill my 12-unit residency requirements. I'm taking Intro to Music, Intro to Dance, and French 2. In my previous videos, I mentioned that I was going to enroll in airline operations and crew resource management, aka human factors in aviation and aviation psychology, but as it turns out, those classes just didn't sit well with my schedule, and I was going to take them online from Cypress College. But now I ended up dropping both those aviation courses to focus on my residency requirements at GCC. I work at LAX as a package handler, and every single Saturday I would pretty much do push-ups during my work breaks. Rapid fire push-ups for me, first break last Saturday, I did 116 repetitions. Second break, I did 128 reps. And my maximum is I would say 143 reps with 85 as baseline, just to pass the PRT requirements. Nonetheless, I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. Top that off with starting to take Naginata Do with the Japanese Cultural Institute at Gardena near Torrance and the airport, as well as Muay Thai kickboxing with Six Side at West Adams in downtown LA. All just to get ready for my impending enlistment in the United States Army as a 15 Tango Black Hawk flight mechanic next year. While I had never commissioned as a regular officer and became an F-18 fighter pilot, I would have to say that I'm grateful that maybe I just didn't go that route, because I wouldn't have liked the social issues that came along with being a naval aviator and delving into the politics of fixed-wing military aviation and the unsettling aviation department head bonuses for those that want to stay in the military. Because, hey, in my early 40s, I'm looking to become a father, and to be away from my wife and my kids, my future wife and my future kids, that is, I would basically abandon them like Bio-Dad abandoned me and my biological mother. I would never want to wish that for my wife. I would never want to wish that for my kids either, because I essentially do not want to repeat the past. And so if I still want to fly for the military, it would be best if I do that as a flight mechanic and hopefully as a helicopter pilot, albeit being over the age limit. But then again, knock on wood, tuk tuk tuk, the Army raises its maximum age limit to 42 years old in X amount of years from now. And I can only hope that that happens, just so I can finally come full circle for myself and for my family. Another thing too, I've been passionate about this British Army 90s TV show called Soldier Soldier, which pretty much tells the lives of enlisted soldiers and officers in the fictional King's Own Fusiliers Infantry Regiment in the British Army. Watching that show, it reminded me of a lot of the things that I experienced in the Navy, with social issues, family strife, and clashes between enlisted and officers. Not to mention the combat deployments that were conveyed in that series, which mirrored my 2 aircraft carrier deployments aboard the G-Dub in 2009 and 2010. With regards to my stepmother, if she ever caught wind of me loving this show so much, she would give me more dirt for just being passionate and quote unquote so engrossed with Soldier Soldier. But you know what I have to do now? I could just tell her to buzz off, or even give her a symbolic slap to the face. Yeah, that's right. I am doing that now. I have grown a bigger pair of testes, and I am here to show her that, hey, she can never mess with someone like me, her former stepchild. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and any comments that you have regarding rough childhoods, please leave them down in the comments below. I'm looking forward to my next video, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you watching this and my previous other videos. That being said, I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Red Hawk, out. Peace.